Welcome. Hope everyone's well. What's going on? Ready to talk some draft, Knicks draft with my man Josh, aka UnclefOOlio. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, CT. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me. Salute to the chat out there. Salute to Knicks Nation. As we count down towards the 2022 NBA draft, excited to talk about what our expectations are, what we want to happen, and let's get it going.
Yep, absolutely, Josh. Options. The Knicks have options. We're going to get into our hopes and what we want to happen on draft night. I'm really excited to hear what you think in the chat as well. And then also we're going to play some convince me scenarios. We know there's 4 scenarios on draft night, and we'll get into that, and we'll try and convince each other of each scenario and a good outcome as well, even if we might not want it to happen. We'll see. But the New York Knicks was no surprise, Josh. Stayed in the 11th spot, and people saying it's the sweet spot. So be positive looking into this draft for the New York Knicks, and it's obviously going to be a very important one.
Well, CT, I was always under the mindset that no matter where you draft, whatever your draft position in the lottery, so to speak, that you could be able to find talent anywhere. And I know there was a whole bunch of people that were giving me flack that they should tank, they should lose these games and try to get a higher seed. But to be honest with you, at any point in the draft lottery, you can be able to find talent that you can be able to plug and put anywhere on the floor. Now, obviously, you do want to get the higher, one of those top 3, top 4 picks, particularly in this draft, right? Because then you have star potential there, right? Mm-hmm. But I look over the past, few 10 years or so, right? There have been guys who late first rounders, second round picks who have been turned out to be NBA superstars in the NBA, right? Or late lottery picks like a Giannis, right? Devin Booker was drafted number 11. That's what the Knicks are drafting this year. Jokic, complete second round pick. Fred VanVleet, undrafted, right? So there's so many players in the NBA that are late lottery picks to late first round picks to second rounders that turn out to be stars. So I'm not really upset that the Knicks got the 11th pick. Only thing that matters is who we draft. You have to draft the right guy. The draft is such a crapshoot. I think we could be able to find some really good talent here at the 11th spot. So I'm excited about the pick, actually.
Yeah, facts. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Exactly what you just said. And, 11th spot, this is what separates your organization from other organizations. You should believe in yourself, believe in your scouting department, believe in your eye for talent. The New York Knicks keep adding. It seems like we turn on the internet, Josh, we log on, and the Knicks have added somebody new to their front office or scouting department or something. So it's got to pay off. I always say there's a salary cap for the roster, but there's no salary cap for back of house.
Yep, yeah, exactly. And last Berman, I know we did the interview with Berman yesterday on NBK or the shoot around, and he said that the Knicks secretly hired Tim Hardaway during the season. Obviously, Gerson Rosas, they hired him as a consultant, right? And obviously, Dolan has his policy out to where the media can't interview none of these guys, or the front office doesn't have to really put that information out there. So that's really interesting. But like you said, as long as the Knicks are bringing in the right people to build the organization and to shape this roster out, I think it shouldn't be a problem either way.
Yep, absolutely. And just before we get into this draft, Walt Perrin was welcomed in. The last couple of drafts seem to be trending in the right direction. So let's get your overall thoughts on the last couple of drafts and whether that factors into your optimism.
I mean, I've loved the last couple of drafts, right? I loved it. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to criticize the Toppin pick, right? Because we have Randle there, and we needed a point guard. Tyrese Halliburton was sitting right there, but I thought Obi Toppin was the best player available at the time. And obviously, if everyone wants to turn back and look at that draft, it's great that we did draft Obi Toppin because Julius Randle regressed, right? So it really just depends on what time frame you're kind of looking at it. I still think there's a lot of time for us to be able to figure out how those drafts are going to pan out. But I think in the short term, and in the last 2 seasons, I think the front office has done a really good job of drafting players that are playing in the rotation, and they are contributing at a high level, right? And some of these guys are playing off the bench, and Knicks have to have one of the best benches in the NBA over the last 2 seasons, right? So I think the draft is trending in the right direction. I think our talent scouting, college scouting, pro scouting department are doing a phenomenal job at finding out the players that are there, looking at what's available on the board and what the team needs and going after those guys. So big kudos to the Knicks front office. Hopefully we continue to do it this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you touched on just earlier, it's every much as bit about the later picks as it is the first pick.
Yep.
You know, people keep forgetting about the 42nd pick. We could get a bona fide talent at that spot, you know, a marginal first round talent in this draft. You know, there's a lot of parity, which we're going to touch on. But first and foremost, salute to the chat, everyone out here. Appreciate your support. Drew, Sharp Hours, P Nice, Dirty Dancer, New Yorker, and Will, Mr. DJ, Allah Wise, and everyone else coming through. J Dragon, Kaiser, Soze, salute. And it's going to be fun. I'm ready to chop this up. Jarvis entered the building. Salute, guys. And yeah, Josh, you know, we've gone a bit back and forth on Twitter about some of the guys we like. And at the 11th spot, and you know, before we do this, you convince me scenarios. The Knicks, from all reports, are going to definitely look at all options. You know, there's different voices in the front office. We know that. You know, Tom Thibodeau is going to want either a ready now player or the pick traded. Walt Perrin's obviously going to be looking for the best guy that he likes. Worldwide West may have his own agenda, maybe wanting to package that for a star. And Brock Aller may be wanting to trade down as well. So that's a preview of what's to come in the show. But Josh, yeah, give us, everyone, your thoughts on who you like so far. Who's on your big board? Who's rising? Who's fallen?
Well, first of all, I mean, I don't think the division between the front office is that drastic. The way you put it, like everyone wants to do some different things. I think, you know, there is a little bit of an agenda. I think, you know, but I do think it all culminates to the, you know, them being on the same page, right? So I think, you know, and I think Tibbs going to have a lot of input on this pick, right? You know, I think Tibbs has had a lot of input over the past couple of years about who the Knicks should be able to draft. So I think it'll be a collective process, so to speak, and I think it'll you know, result in something positive. As far as who I like at 11, I've been on record by saying this. I think the Knicks should go after their priority in this draft should not be point guard. I think it should be a versatile big, a defensive versatile big. That should be their priority. Now, the only caveat to that is if they draft Johnny Davis. Johnny Davis is my number one favorite pick at the 11th spot, Johnny Davis. I believe he is a bucket getter. I've seen the way they used him at Wisconsin during the season, giving him the ball in clutch situations, his ability to get to the paint, his ability to knock down shots. That mid-range game is great. I love that. And you know, I think Johnny Davis is going to be a star in the NBA at some point. And I think that right within itself trumps everything else, right? And that's if he's available at 11. But I think, you know, as far as positional need, the Knicks need a versatile big. You just look around the NBA and the playoffs right now. You got all these teams that are still in it that have bigs that can be able to switch off centers onto forwards, onto guards, right? I think that's a really, really good player to have in your rotation. At the 11th spot, you're not expecting to draft a star player, but you are expecting, at the very least, to have a guy that can come in and contribute in a rotation right away. The Knicks, what they do not have right now, and including point guard, is a big that can be able to switch off centers, be able to guard guards, be able to guard forwards, right? And the player that fit, I have two players that fit that mold for me. I'm looking at Eason from LSU, and I'm also looking at Sohan from Baylor. Those players can be able to switch off and guard multiple positions, and I think that's a very good type of player to have. Not someone necessarily to start, but you can just plug into that rotation, be a good rotational piece. I think Tibbs will love him, right, as a pick and roll defender. One of those two guys is pick and roll defenders. And I think the Knicks should go in that direction if Johnny Davis is not available.
Yep, nice. Yep, we're definitely on the same page about Johnny Davis too. I'm going to admit, you know, maybe in the last week and a half, Josh and chat, he's gone up my board but basically close to top for the 11th spot. And for a lot of the reasons you said, you know, he fits everything. He fits what the coaching staff would look for in the high motor defense, and then the upside of offense as well. 3-point shot. There's been a lot made about Johnny Davis's outside shot, but obviously he was a key focus for Wisconsin, you know, being able to be, you know, the defense keying in on him. And I think he's just going to be better and better as the years go on in the NBA. And that's where my philosophy kicks in. So my philosophy for the New York Knicks is to not overthink it. Pick a guy who you know is going to produce, or you're very, very confident can produce in the NBA at a good level. And he's shown that, you know, a guy that doesn't take plays off both ends of the floor, will get in guys. I love that the way he gets around screens as well. He can get skinny. He can lock people down, and that's what we need. And I also love the other guys you mentioned too, Tari Eason and Jeremy Sohan as well. They're close behind. And I've got another prospect, Malachi Branham, who's in between. He's a guy who I think has a lot more upside. Only 19 years of age, a freshman, and his ability to be deadly in the mid range is exactly what the Knicks need. A guy who can handle the rock as well. Can get in between the defense and rise up and shoot as well. So those are basically my 4 guys looking at the 11 spot for now. But yeah, Johnny Davis, Chat seems to be pretty high on him. Yeah, and it'll be going to be interesting, Josh, to see the workout. So we had the combine now. What's next is we're obviously going to start getting news, Josh, about the New York Knicks getting guys in for a workout. Guys are going to get promises with other teams, and they're probably going to shut it down. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to seeing who the Knicks can work out, because they do have a limit on who they can actually bring in for a private workout. Is that true?
I believe so. And I think this is, probably going to be the most telling part for them to be able to figure out who they want to go with at that spot. And I think I think all these teams have big boards. They have the guys who they are number one on their list. If they're not available, they're probably going to move on to the next guy and see what else is out there. But I think these workouts are going to be very, very telling. This is a chance for the coaching staff and the front office to get their own eyes on what's going on with these particular players, stuff that they can do, their speed and agility and all that stuff, and get a chance to work them out pretty good. One quick mention that I want to talk about is Benedict Mathurin. And I know myself and Queen Steph and a lot of people kind of disagree on this. Their number one guy is Benedict Mathurin. Mine will be Johnny Davis. Benedict Mathurin would be on my list. I just don't feel like he has that star potential as much as Johnny Davis does. And that's the only reason why I don't have him number one on my list. Can he defend? I believe he can defend a little bit. Still needs to work on it. He's not as good as Johnny Davis, obviously, but he definitely can defend. He's an athletic dude, can be able to jump, catch the alley-oop, stuff like that. His ball handling needs some work. And he can knock down a three-point shot. And I think that's what people are really looking for, is someone that can knock down a three-point shot. But I feel like we have enough shooters already, and I feel like, adding him to the mix would be kind of overkill. But I do have him on my list. I just have him after those 3 guys that I had, as far as Davis, Sohan, and Tari Eason. So Benedict Mathurin is on my list. He's just not one of my top 3.
Yep. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's interesting. Fans will give their take on who they like, but we don't know what it's based on. A lot of fans base their like on the current players on the Knicks. So that's the next topic I want to hit on, which is need versus best player available.
Right.
Some people are married to certain players on the roster, whether it be Cam Reddish, RJ, whatever. Right. For me, I've been on record to saying, Josh, I'm just a fan of the New York Knicks. Right? If we can upgrade anywhere, I'll upgrade. That doesn't mean I don't like that player. That doesn't mean I don't want him to stay in New York. That doesn't mean I don't want him to succeed here. But this is a business. Right. If you're a president and your job is on the line, and you need to turn this team into a contender at some point, you're going to have to move on from a player you like. That's just the nature of the business, Josh. And I know you sort of think similar as well.
Yeah, and I've been on record by saying this. I said no one in this Knicks roster is untradeable, and I stick by that. I stand by that 100% of the time. You can quote me on this 10 years from now, 5 years from now. I'm going to say the same thing. For me, where the Knicks are drafting right now, this kind of late lottery, to me, it has to be best player available. It has to be best player available. And even sometimes in the early, the number, top 5 picks in the draft, I will go best player available. And need for me will be second on that list, right? You just go back and look at the Pistons back when they had a chance to draft Carmelo Anthony, and they drafted Darko Milicic, right? Yep. They had a need that they wanted to fill, right? But they didn't go after the best player available, and we see how that turned out, right? Yep. Best player available, to me, I think, is the best way to go, particularly for a team that doesn't have top tier talent. Right? You want to go for the best player available, because the NBA is all about stars. And if the best player available could potentially develop into a star, that's the guy you want on the team, right? And I'll go back to the Knicks a couple years ago with Obi Toppin, right? Obi Toppin at that 8th pick was the best player available. He was better than Tyrese Halliburton at that spot. Even though the Knicks had Randle, they didn't know what Randle can do. And, we see how that turned out. Randle had a pretty good season. Now they became a glut, and now everyone wants Randle gone to play Obi Toppin, right? So to me, I always want to go best player available first, then try to fit the need in there as a second criteria. So that's just the way I will look at it. And again, no player on this Knicks roster is untradeable. I know we have a good at the wing and guard spot, but believe it or not, fans and chat, all these young guys are not going to be here down the road. Somebody's going to have to go, right? So what better way to have these guys go out there and fight it out, fight for their position, fight for their spot on the team. And, there's going to be some good talent there that we can be able to move off of, and hopefully we can get some better talent back, right? So I'm all for drafting best player available.
Yep, and I think they're a similar mindset. That's why these guys are from the agent world. They know what wheeling and dealing means, what business is. They've represented clients that have been traded. They've signed players to contract extensions. These guys know the business, and I'm looking for these guys to shine in this area, roster construction. And first and foremost is Brock Aller, and we'll touch on the 4 scenarios before we get into it, just to give you some indication of what we're going to chop up. So Brock Aller, starts as the first option for me. He's going to be talking to Leon about possibilities of trading down as well, and why. Walt Perrin, he's lives, eats, sleeps, breathes the draft as well, opposite of Tibbs. He's going to see some guys that he really, really likes, and he's going to let Leon Rose know we should take this guy as well. So Walt Perrin's MO is to grab at 11 if he sees a guy he likes. Tom Thibodeau, he might be convincing Leon Rose to trade the pick. For who and why? Why should we do that, Tom? And a guy who's been in the news a lot more, Mr. Worldwide West, he might be convincing Leon to trade up. And for who? Well, so they're the 4 scenarios. But yeah, best player available for me all day, every day. Josh, chat, give us your thoughts on that. We'll shout some people out. Sherwin says Quentin Grimes, Johnny Davis is a Quentin Grimes 2.0. What are your thoughts on that?
Quentin Grimes is not a Johnny Davis 2.0. Right? In college, Johnny Davis was the man on his team. They gave him the ball at the end of the game. He was able to put the ball on the floor, be able to make something happen with it, get to the hole, go drive, get some layups and stuff like that. Quentin Grimes turned out to be just a really good 3-and-D guy. 2 totally different players. Just because they're light-skinned doesn't mean they play the same. Okay? Like they're 2 totally – and I love Quentin Grimes. I'm a huge Quentin Grimes fan, right? I want to see Quentin Grimes succeed in the NBA, and I think on this Knicks team he will. I think he's a really good rotation piece. But to me, Johnny Davis has potential to be a star in the NBA, meaning you can give him the ball at the end of the game and say, go get me a bucket, right? And I think the Knicks don't have that down the roster right now. The closest thing to that, is Randle and RJ. But outside of them, they don't have anybody else in the future to be able to go do that. And I think Johnny Davis is that dude. He can be able to go out and get you that bucket. And that's the biggest difference between Grimes and Davis.
Yeah, 2-way guys. Look, I love a 2-way player, first and foremost. That's how winning's done. I don't think a player needs to be particularly exceptional at one side of the ball than the other. If you look at the Spurs over the years, they build a solid foundation over guys that play both sides. And I think that's where the New York Knicks should go. If you can't land a big fish, Josh, you can't land that superstar, why not just build it with a solid blue-collar team like Memphis, and you sprinkle in one superstar? And then you can really compete. You can lock teams down. Look at the playoffs. Look at the wings. It's a wings league now with Boston and Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally with you, and that's why you got to have these guys. And I like the group of young guys the Knicks have. I mean, they may not have guys that really, your eyes pop out the gym for, but I like the group of young guys that we have. As long as we continue to keep building and building through the draft, like Leon Rose said they were going to do, continue to build through the draft. I don't have a problem with some players that the Knicks have on their roster. But we just still have to find that guy and always be on the search for that guy, because that is what's going to take you to the next level.
Yeah, you figure out the rest later. You bring in the talent, and then you see what trades are available. The New York Knicks might have some tentative trades lined up to move on from Alec Burks, Evan Fournier. That's the difficult thing. We don't see the inner workings behind the front office. They're having conversations each and every day. They could have moved on from Alec Burks and Cam Reddish if they so wanted to. The LA Lakers were ready, but we know they backed out of that trade at the trade deadline because, to be honest, it was just a bad trade. I wouldn't have wanted to take on a first-round pick to move on from Cam and Burks after we gave up a first-round pick and then take on Goran Dragic. So, the Knicks
CT,
showed restraint.
Yeah. Salute to Worldwide L. My man. I haven't spoke to my man Worldwide L in a long time. We're gonna catch up. But I'm gonna respond to Sherwin M's. He said, "Do I know how Johnny Davis tested at the combine? Right? Do I know what his vertical is? I bet his vertical is way higher than RJ Barrett's vertical. I bet it's higher than his, right? And I mean, listen, I like the combine. Even with the NFL, I like the combine. I like what people are testing. But when you get on that field and you get in the field to play, and you get on that court, I mean, something just has to stand out, right? And I think that's the difference between stars. Like Devin Booker didn't have the best numbers at the combine, right? He didn't have the best numbers at the combine, but on that basketball court, Devin Booker is a problem. He is a beast. And I've seen his game develop year after year to now being one of, finally making the All-NBA team that just got announced yesterday, right? So that's what I'm looking for. I like the numbers are cool and everything like that, but I'm just looking at, what they do on the floor.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the measurements and all that kind of thing. Like, give me a player that has that drive and will to play every night and succeed and play hard. And another reason I want the Knicks to make a selection is because my philosophy is I want, and a great comment says, I'm not trading no players we drafted. Wrong comment there. New Yorker, I'm not trading anyone we drafted. The reason is I will love to keep all the players on a rookie contract. You wait to see if they pop. Then you trade them later. So trading players on a rookie contract ain't good business, in my opinion, unless it's to bring in that superstar. Because the whole philosophy should be what OKC is doing, basically. People call it the hinky, the process, all of that. The philosophy behind it is to keep drafting a player until they pop. Then you're at least putting yourself in position to get a player that's going to become a star as well, rather than just trade all your assets and hope someone's going to want to come. So I want the Knicks to make a selection, Josh. I want them to stay young and just build through that way.
Well, ultimately, somebody's going to have to get traded. So, that's going to happen at some point. Now, when that happens, that's all up for debate. We can, try to figure out what's what. But if there's a chance to go out and get a star player in the NBA, or two for that matter, you go ahead and you make that move, because stars run the NBA. You need to have star players to be able to take you to the next level, right? So, I understand how Knicks fans feel. I know for years and years and years, we traded away a lot of our young players and whatever to go try to get stars, but we've only done that really once. That was for Carmelo Anthony. And look what happened with that. The Knicks became relevant again. We won 50-something games. Now, what the front office did after that trade was made, was on them. But the move to get Carmelo Anthony took us to the next level. And a couple tweaks here and there, the Knicks could have been in contention in the Eastern Conference Finals, or potentially, in the NBA Finals, if we would have done it the correct way after we got Carmelo Anthony, right? So I'm not opposed to getting stars. It's just that the Knicks have not traded for stars. They traded for guys at the end of their careers. They traded for players that didn't have no business being injury prone or whatever the case may be. Right. So I think there's a huge difference with that. I think a lot of Knicks have, quote unquote, PTSD. Knicks fans have PTSD when it comes to the Knicks trading away anybody, because it's like, we're going to be missing out. Right. And I just don't think that's necessarily the case. So it depends on who we get back. Yes, it has to be someone, a star player that can be able to take you to the next level. I'm a big Donovan Mitchell fan. If the Knicks can find a way to bring him to New York, I will love that. But what people have to remember is that's not going to be the only move that's going to get done. After you bring in a Donovan Mitchell, you still have to go get other moves or make other moves happen in order for the Knicks to contend and be at that next level. Yeah,
we're all about the draft for this show, and then we'll do another one. We'll get you back, and we'll talk about after the draft and the plan for free agency and everything, and more building for the future and roster construction as well. But I love everyone's passion. The New York Knicks fan base is passion is second to none. I love the fact that they defend their players as well. I'm just going to give my thoughts and say that, I'm not married to any player, because if there's an upgrade to be made, I think, and it makes sense, you have to do it. If something doesn't make sense, you don't have to do it. But I do like the fact that the Knicks exercise some more patience. Now we're not trading away first round picks for a marginal talent. Like we did with the Baranyani situation, and those kind of days I'm confident are over. So my
Right.
PTSD ain't at the level that some fans have it at. But
Right.
but at the same time, where I'm at with this front office is, all right, show me, like, what's your next move? And you spoke about it with Mark Berman last night on NBK Network, great show. And everyone's wondering, what is the plan? Like, no one really knows. And this draft is pretty much going to show us, okay, like all these different personalities in the room, exactly who's going to be on the same page. And let's get to the first scenario with that situation. Let's start with the very top. Mr. Josh, UnclefOOlio, you are, we're going to go back and forth, but you are Worldwide West as well. If there's a possibility of the New York Knicks trading up, right, why should I listen to that, and who should I consider?
Well, this is a top heavy as far as the top 4 players and then everyone else, right? This type of draft, right? You could probably argue top 5. So if you're going to trade up, you have to trade into the top 5, in my opinion, right? So that's what you're looking to get. You're looking to get a guy who's going to potentially turn out to be, superstar potential in the NBA, and that's what you're looking to trade the draft up to trade up for, right? So I'm looking at probably Jaden Ivey. I'm looking at a Jabari Smith, that's pretty much where I'm looking to get into that top 5 range. So, you can be guaranteed to have one of those guys. So I think if that's what the Knicks are going to do, that's what they should think about when they try to make that move.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, you mentioned Mathurin earlier. You're pretty high on him, and Ivey, you feel like could be a difference maker as well. So you outline those two guys. That's more realistic for the Knicks to get to.
Yeah, definitely. If they trade up for that top 5 area, you're probably pretty much going to be guaranteed to get one of those guys. And those are the difference makers. Those are superstar potential guys. You can put those guys into the starting lineup right away. And we can start rocking with those guys from day one.
Yeah. What about a more riskier proposition? Should I entertain trading up for a Dyson Daniels or let's say Johnny Davis is 2 spots above where we're selecting at 9, where I've got him on my big board. Should we entertain trading up for a couple of spots to get a guy we like? If it means parting with another, let's say it means parting with the Dallas pick and maybe another pick in the future.
I would entertain that. It really just depends on who we're giving up. Again, and Johnny Davis does have potential to go at 9. I think he has star potential in the NBA. So I think, that is definitely a possibility. You just got to figure out, the semantics, like who we're giving up and then stuff like that. If it means parting ways with the Dallas pick from next year, I think it's worth a shot. Because like I said, a lot of these picks aren't going to be here, right? A lot of these young players are not going to be here, right? So you got to be able to make some room on the roster for a lot of these young players to come in. Parting ways with next year's Dallas pick, I think will be worth it in that scenario. Maybe a young player, maybe a Deuce McBride or, something like that, just to kind of sweeten the deal or something like that. Not all together, not in a collective, but just something else to try to open up roster spots for this guy to come in. But there's no doubt about it. If you feel a guy has superstar potential, you go up and you get that guy. And if it means going up to number 8 or number 9 for Dyson Daniels or Johnny Davis, you go up and you make that move.
Yep. Scared money doesn't make any money.
That's right.
And what about Julius Randle? Let's say Portland. You see it there in ladies and gents in the bold green, a potential trade partners, in my opinion. And Portland, all reports they're looking to move out of that 7 spot, and one other than Benny Mathurin is sitting there ready for us to move up. Let's say Portland say, okay, we'll take Randle, but we want the 11th, and we'll give you 7.
I don't know if that trade is really likely. I know Julius Randle's going to make $23 million this year. I don't know if Portland has the cap space to be able to absorb him straight up. So I don't know if that would be.
They do.
They have the room available for him?
They don't have the cap space, but they have a huge trade exception that Julius Randle can fit straight into.
Right. I mean, I would consider it. I would definitely consider it. But if you trade away Julius Randle, you have to understand this team is not going to be very good next year. Right. So you have to be able to accept that as a Knicks fan. I mean, that option's on the table for me as well. I'm not opposed to that. Basically a pick swap plus Julius Randle to move up to number 7. Essentially what you're saying is Julius Randle is worth 4 draft picks or 4 spots up in the draft order. That's essentially what you're saying. I mean, I would have no problem with that. I think it's definitely possible to move up to number 7, but you just have to know that guy that you want at 7, whether it be Mathurin, whether it be Daniels, whether it be Davis. You have to know that's the guy you want, and that guy has to play right away. You have to find a spot for him starting right away if you're going to move up that high to go get that player. So, think about it. So for Mathurin and Davis, right? Those are, small forward shooting guard types. So, you're already going to have RJ. So are you going to move Fournier? Are you going to move Fournier to the bench? What's going to happen with Fournier? You know what I'm saying? If you move up to go get one of those guys, they have to start, in my opinion. Dyson Daniels, you can plug him in at the point guard. We got a 6'8" point guard. You can just plug in right there, and then, there you go. But for the other two, that's a question mark.
Yeah, it is a bit of a risky trade, just moving up a few spots. But one underrated fact with that trade would be getting out of Julius's salary and not taking any salary back. That's very, very rare. There aren't many teams that can just absorb Julius, and we don't. So we would basically be admitting, okay, Julius, this is your value. We feel like more addition by subtraction, and we get out of your deal. We get back, a nice pick. We like to play, let's say it is Mathurin, and we rock from there. So, yeah, that is a scenario. I'm not saying I'm for this, ladies and gents.
Right.
I'm just saying, we just got to include Julius in any trade-up scenario because Portland are there. And my opinion, if the New York Knicks do trade up, the 7th is the most realistic spot. Let's be real. I don't see Detroit moving out of the 5th spot necessarily if they have their pick between, Ivey, Keegan, or anyone else.
My only concern with that is, and I see what you're saying about you basically shedding salary, right? The Knicks really, if you look at next year's salary, the Knicks are going to still have, from mid to lowest payrolls in the NBA next year, right? Let's say you move Randle. The only contract that you have going beyond next season, big contract, right? Is Fournier, right? After that, you're talking about a bunch of contracts coming off the books, between Noel, Burks, Rose, all those contracts are coming off the books that offseason. So after that, basically the only things you're really going to have to trade is going to be young players, right? That's the only thing you're going to have, young players and draft picks. So, I mean, you can go about it that way, but I just want people to understand that that's the case. You're not going to have too much any other trade assets besides the young players that you have on the roster. Right. So that's another reason of me saying that a lot of these young players are not going to be here. So you can trade Randle now, but you won't be able to trade him in the future, obviously, because he's going to be gone. So that's how I'm kind of looking at that. And it's worth it. It's worth the, kind of risking it. But you have to be sure that that's your guy if you're going to trade up to one of those spots.
Yeah, absolutely. That plays a huge part. And in terms of moving up, I think the New York Knicks most likely to move up with, future picks, Dallas, let's talk about that because Dallas are going to be good for the next few years, and next year's Dallas pick ain't going to be as valuable, for us potentially. So that might be something they dangle in any trade up scenario. But yeah, I think the New York Knicks will test the waters. They have to, but to be honest, I don't put the percentages very high, the chances of the Knicks moving up. I just don't. I think it's more likely we stay at 11. Gun to my head. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's the least likely option. There's just a lot of stuff that they have to weigh out. I really don't believe that they're sold at anybody within or that sold, at that level between 7, 8, or 9 that they can be able to go ahead and try to reach out for. So I'm with you. I think out of these 4 options, I think that's the least likely.
Yep. Yeah, Keith makes a great question. Shout out, Keith. Who are we shedding for cap space anyways? Yep, it is a good point. But maybe Leon Rose really wants to bring Jalen Brunson in here and needs that salary cap space. There's been reports, and Mark Berman confirmed, sign and trade between Mitch and Brunson doesn't work mathematically.
Right.
So, and if Dallas don't want to take Julius Randle, let's say Jalen Brunson decides I do want to really be in New York, clear the cap space for me. Well, yeah, this could be one way. But yeah, I don't really see it likely, Keith.
Well, and to Keith's point, again, this is that Knick PTSD. You still have to be able to have your books open in the future to be able to have that flexibility. You still have to have that. But along those lines of shedding cap for Brunson, then why are we drafting Daniels? It wouldn't be Daniels in that case because we're shedding cap for Brunson, right? So you're looking at probably either a Mathurin or a Davis or which either one of them can fall to 11 anyway, right? So I just think. This is the least likely option of trading up. You know what I'm saying? I just don't think it, it makes sense right now compared to the other options.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, I think we've hit on that. And appreciate your takes and everyone in the chat. Keep it buzzing. All right, so this is really going to get things buzzing. Next scenario is Tom Thibodeau, and you're trying to convince me to trade the pick for anyone that you can think of. What makes sense if the New York Knicks do trade this pick and why?
So this is my second likely option. My second on my totem pole to trade the pick. And the only reason being is if you're going out to get a star player. Like if you're going to get a star player, I'm willing to trade this pick. I'm willing to trade Dallas's next year. Right, so that's 2 first-round picks. We'll still have our own first-round pick for next year, right? And we still have some other young players that you can be able to add to the deal. Plus, some salary fillers, maybe a Fournier, maybe a Randle, something like that. Right? It's not just any old veteran player, Menno F. He said he'd be so pissed if they move this pick for a veteran. It's not going to be any old veteran. I'm talking about a bona fide star player. I'm talking about Donovan Mitchell. I'm talking about any star player that's going to be available. It's pretty much him. I don't see any other star players being available like that. Anthony Davis. That's I know with the injury history and everything like that, but Anthony Davis, when healthy, he's a top 5 player in the world. Right, so I'm going to put his name out there, but that's what I would trade this pick for, right? And I think that's what Thibodeau wants, and I think having a guy like that combined with either a Randle or an RJ gets the Knicks to the next level, and we still have enough assets to be able to fill out the rest of the roster, young players, that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add in this dynamic, ladies and gents. Trading the 11th pick doesn't mean we trade out of the draft completely. That might mean we trade the 11th pick for a player and we take on a pick lower. This first round is a flat after 8, 9, 10. It's very flat. We might trade the 11th pick for a vet that Tom Thibodeau likes, and we might take on the 26th selection. So we might not trade out of the draft completely. We might just want to trade the 11th pick for a player. And Tom Thibodeau, I'm going to throw some names out there, and everyone give us your thoughts. Gordon Hayward, for instance. Tom Thibodeau, the record says he has a love affair with Gordon Hayward. And the Charlotte Hornets, it's no secret they want to move out of him as well. So that could be one guy. The situation, like you said, AD, maybe LA needs to retool, and they like someone at 11. And a lot of these scenarios don't pop up, which is hard for anyone to predict. They don't pop up until each front office is in the war room, and each front office may have an epiphany. They're at that spot. They're on the clock. And a deal gets presented, and maybe they just go, okay, let's consider this, man.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon Hayward, I'm not that high on. He has been injured basically his whole career. I know Anthony Davis has been too, but Anthony Davis is a top 5 player in the NBA when he's healthy. So that's the risk that you take with that, right? But I'm not a big fan of Gordon Hayward, but I think you're absolutely correct. Doesn't have to just be trading out of the draft. You can trade for someone else to get a lower draft pick because, again, the draft is a crapshoot after 10 or 11 or whatever the case may be, right? So, you're going to be able to find talent anywhere that you'd be able to work with, right? So I think everything's on the table. And that's why this is my second favorite thing to do with this pick right here.
Yeah, and that brings to the Tom Thibodeau scenario. We've heard from Mark Berman as well recently. He's been having some input. He's been there watching for 4 hours straight. He didn't get up off his chair, which is, I salute him for being really invested in this. And, I see that scenario where Tom Thibodeau will sign off on a guy like Johnny Davis, a couple of guys that he really likes. And then the other guys, he might just be like, meh,
right.
you guys, my thoughts, get me a vet, you guys sorted it out. But yeah, he will sign off on a couple of guys. But I think, Tom Thibodeau, most of the part, he'll want the pick. If there's a deal that gets a veteran that can help him win, he'll want that, So it's all about Tom Thibodeau with this scenario, but it's up to Leon Rose to be convinced, And I'm glad that Leon Rose is a guy that's not really going to be swayed. I feel like he's going to be a guy that just goes with what he wants to do. What are your thoughts on what Leon's going to do?
Yeah, and I think it's not just Leon. I think, the way Madison Square Garden, Dolan has the Knicks front office structure, he's always had this, outside of the Phil Jackson days, there's always been this collective mind type of thing, right? The Knicks are one of the few organizations to have a president of basketball operations and a general manager. Not many organizations in the NBA have that dynamic. Most organizations have president of basketball operations that is the general manager, or an executive vice president of basketball operations that is the general manager, right? The Knicks have this collective thing where they have multiple minds that are making this decision. So again, I agree with you. I don't think Leon Rose is someone that's quickly swayed. I think the way the front office is structured kind of prevents that from happening in a way. Ultimately, it will come down to him, but I think the way everything is structured, it'll be more of a team decision.
Yeah, that's the dream. Everyone puts their case forward like you're doing to me right now, right. And Leon makes the call. He's the one on the clock, really, in my opinion. He's the one earning the big bucks, and he has plenty of advisors, from Worldwide West to Tom Thibodeau's experience in scouting these candidates, etc., as well. So yeah, that's interesting. You see, this is the second most likely scenario. Let's move on to the other one, Walt Perrin as well. The draft guru, we all know he spotted Donovan Mitchell. He was high on him. This is why he was brought in, Josh, to really earn his money and to make the New York Knicks a serious team that can scout talent. And the 11th spot, we say it's the sweet spot. So, okay, Walt Perrin, what have you got for me?
This is my number one scenario. So this is what I want the Knicks to do on draft night. I want them to basically find talent right there at 11. Like I said, you can go multiple different directions with it, right? In my opinion, they should go after a switchable big that you could switch on defense, right? And you're going to be able to potentially find some there. You see, after 11, you got Eason and Sohan going at 13 and 14 potentially with this mock that you have up here, right? And I think those guys will be great for the Knicks. Rotation players, you can plug those guys in right away. Not as starters, but you can plug them in right away. And let's just say worst case scenario or best case scenario, a Davis or Mathurin falls to 11. You can go out and get potentially a guy with superstar potential in Davis, in my opinion. Or you can go after Mathurin, who will be another good rotation wing that you could be able to throw out there. So I think there's so many options available at 11. There's no reason to really do much with it, or it's less likely, or I don't want to say less likely, but you're at 11, you're fine. You can go in so many different directions. This team has a lot of different holes that they can be able to fill. So I'm all for this. This is my number one option. This is what I would do. And like I said, we have too many assets already that a lot of these young guys are not going to be able to play. So I'm all for staying put at 11 and seeing what we got.
Yep, no, I agree. My first choice as well, guys. Let us know. Because we're in the sweet spot. It's true. There's not a risk. The New York Knicks whiff on the 11th pick. It's not going to get a GM fired, that situation. But at the 11th pick, you hit a home run, then you're cooking with fish grease. Yes. Like Klay Thompson was picked 11. Devin Booker was 12 or 13. Donovan Mitchell was 12. I mean? It's a sweet spot. And you can maybe move up a couple spots and you can move down a couple spots as well. So that, yeah, it's in a prime situation for this draft. There's wings aplenty. There's potentially, someone to slip in that top 10 that we see in front of us. There could be some guys slip. And I think Ben Mathurin, if there's some guys to slip, that's mocked ahead of 11, who do you see as maybe one or two guys that you think are most likely to, out of, if anyone slips?
I
think AJ Griffin. I think there's some injury possible concerns.
Yeah.
I think maybe, yep.
Yeah, I'm looking at Griffin. I'm looking at Davis, Daniels as well. I've seen some mocks that had Daniels going, in the top 7, and I've seen some of him drafted at like 14 or 15, right? So it really just depends. It really just depends on what happens at the top 5. I think that top 5 will really tell us, what's going to happen, because I've seen Ivey sometimes go 4. I've seen Ivey sometimes go 5, right? And then at 5, it depends on what Detroit's really looking at. So I think Detroit's really going to be that wild card. Whatever they pick at number 5, I think that's really going to be telling, because we all know they need a center, and they were hoping to get in the top 3 because they have one of the 3 worst records in the NBA. But since they dropped down to 5, they're going to pretty much determine how the rest of the draft is going to basically operate. You know what I'm saying? So, I think that's pretty much how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, man. If we're factoring into any player that might slip, you got to look at the Spurs. They could throw a spanner in this work. They drafted Josh Primo.
Right.
OKC have so many picks. They have a lot of talent. Maybe they go best need available because they have so many picks in the future and so much talent. And I've been seeing some crazy mocks where Jalen Duren is a guy who might be a guy below 10 that jumps into the 10.
Right. That's another one.
6. Yep. Yeah.
That's
you know, his rawness and potential upside may have a team salivating.
Right. Yep. I totally agree with you. So yeah, so a lot of these guys can be drafted, you know, within the top 10, you know, and that's going to cause some people to fall out. So I'm totally with you on that.
Yeah, facts, right? Shout out to the chat, everyone up in here. Hard Wheels, salute. Lifestyles of the Savvy Saver. P Nice, yep, interesting draft. Absolutely. And let's hit on the next topic. And this is my second scenario, ladies and gents, and I'll break down why. But Josh, Brock Aller convinced me to move down, and why?
So this is my second to last likely or what I would want to happen. I don't want the Knicks to do this. It's going to be third on my list. And the simple fact is we have enough assets already. I feel like, you know, draft picks, we have a-plenty. I think there's like 8 second-round picks that we have next year or something crazy like that. You know what I mean? So you just got to be able to you have enough assets to make trades already, right? You only have a certain amount of roster spots that you have, right? So a lot of these guys aren't going to play. To me, you know, trading down for more assets to me just doesn't make any sense right now. I think the Knicks need to basically stay put where they are and work it out that way. Obviously the potential is there, but I just don't understand why. Like Oklahoma City for me, it's like mind-boggling. They have all of these picks, right? You know, they drafted, you know, they drafted top guys in the top 5, right? You know, so I understand why they're doing that. But they have so many other picks. Like, where are these guys going to play? You know what I mean? So I just don't understand the logic behind it. And for the Knicks right now, I think we're fine where we are in that regard. I think we're fine. So I wouldn't trade down for more picks.
Yep. No, you make good points. You know, maybe not overthinking it, and the roster. You're right. You know, there is log jams. That's a fact. My case towards moving down is the pure fact that there's so much value, and salute Harlem G319, like they say, it's an underrated strong draft, and I think a guy in the 15 to 20 range could be every bit as good of an NBA player as someone in the 7 to 11 range. You know, we just don't know. Obviously, it's a crapshoot, but yeah, there's heaps of depth with the wings. You know, I'm really high on Jaden Hardy, a guy I've got my big board at 18. And that just shows how strong the draft is in terms of depth. You know, Jalen Duran, maybe Mitch, you know, maybe they get word that Mitch walks and we know we could get a Duran or Mark Williams and some other wing. You know, would you take one player, Johnny Davis, over a center and another wing, you know, for more value? Maybe the Knicks Kentucky ties with Ty. You know, Ty's been slipping, but I think it's a lot of reasons due to injury. You know, he's got his knocks. You know, he's not the most athletic guy, but he's going to be a steal if he's picked anywhere from 20 below. I think Ty could be like the Cole Anthony type where he proved people wrong coming into the league. And there's some international guys, Jovic. There's, you know, centers out there. You know, some fans of Kai Soto. Yeah, I'm a fan of Jean Montero, the Dominican point guard as well. So yeah, that would be my case. It's not my top selection, but out of trading up and then trading out, I wouldn't mind trading down. I would not be mad. And it's a trend that the New York Knicks have been doing for the last 2 years. So don't be surprised, ladies and gents.
Well, I won't be. I won't be surprised if that happens. I mean, would I want that to happen? Not necessarily. It really depends on who's on the board and who's available. If you're telling me that Johnny Davis and Ben Mathurin are off the board and the Knicks have a pick at 11, I'll be a little bit more open to it because, you know, I know you can be able to find some rotation guys at between 15 and 20 or whatever the case may be. You can be able to find some rotation bigs down there. I'm not that big of a fan of Mark Williams. I know he's like a big rim protecting kind of guy, but he is the Mitch prototype. You know what I mean? Catch alley-oops, stay in the paint. I think we need a guy that can be able to step out a little bit more, be a little bit more versatile. So that's why I'm not a big fan of Mark Williams, that the center from I think Duke is Duke. But yeah, there's some other guys out there that you can be able to, you know, put in the rotation that are down there. And this is only if Johnny Davis or Ben Mathurin are off the board. You know, then I would be looking elsewhere. But I like Sohan and Easton a lot. And if they're available at 11, those are the next guys on my list. So I'm less likely to trade out of that 11th spot just to trade down for more assets. I just don't think it makes the most sense at this point.
No, definitely. And we'll chop up some more of the prospects we like in a minute. But Brock, I want to throw another spanner in the works. We trade down, but it doesn't mean we pick up another pick in this draft. Let's say we trade down and we get a pick in the future draft. So that solves the logjam issue. We get another future asset and we move down a couple spots. Can I convince you that way?
No, because I think the logjam is still going to be there no matter what. Like, because we're talking about the next couple of drafts. Let's say next year, these young guys are all going to be under contract, on their rookie deals next year, right? So you still have logjam issues there. I think the best way to clean up this logjam is not to, like kicking the can down the road, is to trade some of these guys. See what they got, you know what I mean? Have them fight it out in training camp or whatever the case may be. And whoever is not able to produce or not able to outwork the other guy, you still have some value with that person. I'm sure another team will see that value, and you could be able to make a trade to potentially bring in someone, a star player, right? So I'm not a big fan of kicking the can down the road, that type of mentality. That logjam is always going to be there. The Knicks have an abundance of picks over the next couple of years anyway, so I'm not a fan of doing that either. Nice try, though. I like it.
Okay, yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're falling unanimously on Walt Perrin wins. Yep, Walt Perrin's the man.
Yes.
Get excited because he's nous and his knack for talent should be there. There should be a guy the Knicks like at 11. If there isn't, there's something wrong. And let's chop up some more guys at 11. Johnny Davis is probably at the top of my list, to be honest. And then the wings close second, the wings that can defend multiple positions, the Tari Eason and the Sohan as well. Because I think their jump shot's going to come along. If they can be solid catch and shoot guys and defend at the level that they could do, Josh, that's a prototypical wing that helps you in the playoffs now that we're seeing,
Well, CT, it's not just being able to defend wings. I'm talking about being able to defend fives. Even at 6'8", 6'9", because they're so good defensively, you can be able to switch them onto fives and be able to defend. Like, look at Grant Williams in Boston. Really good rotation player to have out there. He can defend fours. He can defend fives. Draymond Green, we already know about, right? We know about the greatness of Draymond Green. Bam Adebayo, he plays center, but he can be able to defend fives, fours, sometimes threes. I'm looking for guys like that can be able to, defend opposing bigs in the NBA, pick and roll defenders, can be able to switch off and also hold their own in the paint, grab rebounds, stuff of that nature. Like, people in today's NBA, centers don't have to be 7 foot tall. Like, the centers in the NBA are not that old school Mitch, Mark Williams type prototype. Shaquille O'Neal stay in the paint. Bigs nowadays have to be able to switch and guard smaller players, right? And I'm a big fan of that. That's the type of guy I want on this team. I feel like with Jericho Sims, Mitchell Robinson, Nerlens Noel, they're all the same kind of prototype. You don't have anybody else that can do much more defensively. Offense, that's a whole nother subject. But from the defensive side of the ball, we need to have guys that can be able to switch.
Yep, absolutely. And I was chatting to Beeble Breakdown about the success last season. The season before last was the defense. Julius Randle's, shine season, but it was the defense mostly. It was a throwback. We held teams to under 85 points. That's the identity we're going to get back to if Tom Thibodeau is still here. That's the way we win ball games, I think, on the defensive end. And the guys being able to switch, rotate. And I love me a high IQ defender player as well. Defense isn't just on the ball; it's off the ball. Your awareness,
absolutely.
The backdoor cuts, always knowing, seeing the ball, seeing the man. In the words of Clyde,
absolutely.
Yep, and appreciate everyone throwing some of their thoughts out there as well. Mo Bamba is going to be an interesting one. Turner and Mo Bamba as well. What do you gun to your head, Josh? What do you think is going to happen with Mitchell Robinson?
I'm like 90% sure he's not going to be a Knick next season. 90% sure. I think, there's a big enough market for him out there. I think there's more money for him to get elsewhere, particularly Detroit now. And that's what Mark was saying. Now that Detroit's out of that top 3 spot, they're at 5, that they're out of the Holmgren sweepstakes. I think they're going to make a really big push for Mitchell Robinson, which would make the most sense, right? I think that would make the most sense. So, and they have the money to sign him outright. So there's no need to do a signing trade or anything like that with us. There's no point, right? So, I'm 90% sure he's out the door. But I said this 2.5, 3 years ago when I brought up a potential to trade Mitchell Robinson. I get it; he was on his rookie deal, But I was like, listen, we can trade Mitch. We can trade Mitchell Robinson and Julius Randle to Golden State for Wiggins and that pick right there, which turned out to be Wiseman. But we could have picked up LaMelo Ball. I was for that trade. I was all for that trade because I felt like LaMelo Ball had star potential. So this is an example of the Knicks having a young player, second round pick, whatever, on his rookie deal, but you have an opportunity to go out and get that dude and LaMelo Ball. And I was all for that. And a lot of people looked at me like I was crazy. LaMelo Ball's he's not that good. He's not that good. And that's what happens, CT. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but that's what happens. You start bringing up some of these players who turn out to be really good, but Knicks fans are so hung on to our rookies and all we got that we don't want to trade for anybody. Yet when the season comes around, everyone's all mad and yelling and this and that. They want to, so that's just the way I feel about that. So
yeah, that's why with Walt Perrin winning this situation, he's got Leon's ear now. He's running this draft. Let's say I'm confident because he's gonna identify a guy that might be on no one's board. If he really believes in someone, the New York Knicks should take that swing. You know what I mean? If it is Jalen Duren and they believe he's going to be the next Wilt, take him. You know what I mean? Like, these guys know what they're doing. At the end of the day, all these mocks and big boards and things they're just people's opinions at the end of the day.
right.
It's what the scouts think as well. And I think the New York Knicks shouldn't look at fit. It should just be best player available. If it can slot into any 5 positions, we're at this point where we're building from the ground up, and we need more building blocks, so to speak. And speaking of building blocks, RJ Barrett, he got some talk on the last show I did with B-Ball Breakdown coach Nick. He's not as high on RJ Barrett, but he's not saying that he can't be something in the league. He's saying he's got to improve. There's nothing wrong with saying a player's got to improve. Right. We love RJ. I love him as well. Do I think he'll be a 6 man on a really good team? I think he can be much better than that. But I see Coach's point when he was saying, I see RJ as a 6 man on a really good team, because you look at Boston. Would RJ Barrett start over Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? Would he start over Klay Thompson and Jordan Poole if he was on the Warriors right now? Would he start over Jimmy Buckets and Tyler Hero if he was on the Heat?
Well, Hero's not starting, but I think they got that Strus guy. I think Strus is starting.
Strus,
probably could start over Strus. Probably could start over Strus. I think that's an option there. Yeah. But the Tyler Hero question is very, very, Tyler Hero's a bucket.
He's often getting compared to him. But what about Milwaukee? Who starts next to Middleton? Who's the other wing? If Middleton's healthy, is it Drew Holiday, and then is it Connaughton?
Yeah, one of the shooters. I think it would be the shooter. I think that they need shooting around Giannis, so it would be the shooter. Yeah.
See, I think he can be that starting wing on a really good team. But is he that right now? No, he's not. He's a starting wing on the New York Knicks. Let's get it real.
Right. I think just having this conversation, a lot of people are very uncomfortable with it because they assume that because we say this stuff that the Knicks are automatically doomed, right? And listen, I've been critical of RJ. CT. You've seen what I've said about him. He wasn't playing well. And I say he needs to play with the second team with the young players because I believe he'll play better that way. But just even mentioning it or remotely even questioning RJ's abilities makes you an RJ hater. And I'm not an RJ hater. We need RJ to be successful. I'm a Knicks fan before anything else. If RJ is successful, I know this team is much more likely to be successful. So it's not like I'm hating on him just for the sake of doing it, but he does need to get better. And if there's an opportunity to go get that guy to take us to the next level, I'm sorry, RJ, but
Yep. Yeah, and he's not Leon Rose's selection, but I see fans' frustration because he does get some shade across the sort of national media that don't watch every Knicks game. I understand that frustration too. I feel like he has much more potential than what people say his potential is. But I'm evaluating RJ where he is right now. And he needs to come into next season with a lot more tools. The efficiency, I know.
He just has to prove it. He has to prove it. The biggest thing to make people, shut up or to take notice about what you're doing is to go out on the court and prove it. So, I mean, that's just the nature of the business. You want to say people are picking on the Knicks or whatever, like that's all fine and dandy. You got to go out and prove it. Show me what you got on the court. Towards the end, at the end of the season last year, RJ Barrett was starting to do that. He started to take over, and I was happy about that. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to see. Now we need to see this on a consistent basis. Get into that next level where your contemporaries are, where the Zions are, the Ja Morants are. Now you got Jordan Poole. Tyler Hero just won 6th Man of the Year. These guys all came from the same draft, right? So prove it, RJ. Prove it. That's what I'm asking you to do. Prove it. Prove me wrong. How about that? If this is all about me, Nick fan base, the RJ fans, prove me wrong. Please, prove me wrong. I would love that to happen.
I personally don't think there's any shade being a 6th man on a really good team. On a normal team, yes, but on some of the best players in NBA history were a 6th man on a really good team. So
I've been saying that for a long time, CT, but I've gotten so much shade. I've gotten so much shade for that, and I don't know why. Don't know why.
And like I said, it goes back to my philosophy on a rookie contract. I'm waiting for a dude to finish his rookie contract. Then I'm starting to really evaluate, because we've seen dudes still peak. Look at Andrew Wiggins. If RJ has an Andrew Wiggins type career trajectory where he was the butt of all jokes at, I think he would have been RJ's age, or even 4, 5, 6 years in the league, people were saying, okay, what's Andrew Wiggins going to show me? Now people are fawning all over Andrew Wiggins in this playoff series because he's playing next to 3 Hall of Famers.
Right. Yeah.
And where do you sit with Cam Reddish then? Are you higher on Cam Reddish right now, or are you higher on RJ right now?
No, I haven't seen Cam Reddish play. I haven't seen him play. I mean, I've seen him play, but I haven't seen, I need to see more, right? I might right now. I can't positively say that Cam Reddish is going to be a Knick beyond next season. I can't positively say that. I need to see more of him. And I know Tibbs, I guess, waited to put him in there. Basically wanted to get his feet wet or whatever the case may be. But even when he was on the floor, I just didn't really see much there. So I have questions about whether Cam Reddish is going to be here long term. I really do. This is the season where he's going to have to show that. So.
Yep. Yeah, great point.
Can I respond to this comment right here that you have highlighted? Big O the third.
Yep.
He says, there's so many factors y'all not considering, like personnel, coaching, strategy, etc. I've said this on numerous occasions. I'll say this again. If you're that dude, none of that stuff would matter as much. None of that stuff matters as much. Not every player is going to be in the perfect situation. Some players have to fight whatever whatever obstacles that they're going through to become, who they are, because that's just who they are, period. It doesn't matter who you have around you, right? So you're not telling me that RJ Barrett hasn't had his opportunity in New York. He was a starter since day one, right? Second on the team in shots taken, second on the team in usage rate. So he's got his opportunities. So I don't want to hear this, RJ's the victim, all of this stuff. They're trying to paint him to be the victim. That's not the case. Show me. You have every opportunity right now, in New York with the ball in your hands right now to show who you are as a player, right? Have you been making strides? Absolutely. But I want to see you become that guy. Be that dude.
Yeah. I don't think RJ Barrett sucks at all whatsoever. I just think he needs to continue to grow based on his potential, a 3rd overall selection. And for me, my ceiling ain't as high as some people, but my floor is a bit higher. If RJ Barrett caps out at a 3rd best player on a great team, I'm okay with that. He doesn't have to be the number 1 option for me. It's not number 1 option or bust for me for RJ Barrett. But like you said, I use that as an excuse at the end of someone's career. At the end of someone's career, they had their chance. And I think in this situation, RJ Barrett, you've got to factor in some of the things in New York as to why people aren't high on him. Why the national media ain't high on him as well. If he was on Brooklyn, if he was on the Golden State Warriors, I bet the national media thoughts on RJ Barrett would be different to what they are. It's the same LOL Knicks narrative, which is another reason they're a bit higher, a bit harsher on RJ, I think.
Well, a lot of that is playoff experience, but the one time the Knicks did make the playoffs, what did RJ Barrett do in the first round of the playoffs? So a lot of it is playoff. I mean, that's how the team gets viewed nationally, right? You have your nationally televised regular season games, and then you have what goes on in the playoffs, right? So a lot of that is playoffs. But when we did go to the playoffs, what happened in that first round? So these are excuses. I think I mean, I get it. They're fair. You know, they might be fair, but at some point, you know, excuses are run out.
What do you think about the other players on the roster? Who, if there's any players that you really, really want to keep out of any deal, untouchables, who are you building with?
Well, right now, I don't have anybody on the Knicks as being untouchable, so to speak. I think the closest thing to untouchable, I would say, will probably be R.J. Barrett, because that potential is there. I think the potential is there. The closest thing to it, completely untouchable. There's not one player, on this roster that I can say is untouchable. And someone said that R.J. Barrett didn't have the ball. Again, second on the team in usage rate for the last 3 years. Second on the team. So he didn't have the ball. Nonsense. Complete nonsense. I like some of the Knicks young players. I do. I like Grimes. I like IQ a lot. Obi is someone who I wanted the Knicks to draft. So I like what we have. We just don't have that guy, that dude to get us to the next level, that potential MVP or in the conversation for, we don't have that dude.
It takes time. You got to build step by step. When you build a building, you build it level by level. It's okay to start with the third best player on a team. Everyone want to go grab that number one option immediately. Sometimes that number one option comes to you when you've built the other stages strongly, and that's why another reason why we should maybe move on from Julius Randle if that trade presents itself, because who's going to want to come to play with Julius Randle? The ball's stuck to him.
Well, I think that's a product of the coaching staff. It is Julius Randle, but I think that's the product of the coaching staff as well, because they don't have any trust in anybody else, right? I think RJ started to get that trust towards the second half of the season when he stepped up. And that's when he got that trust. But I don't think this is just Julius Randle going out, hogging the ball from everyone else. I've seen times where Julius Randle was completely passive and gave the ball up and no one else did anything with it. So I think this is a product of the coaching staff. But what I will say, to your point, CT, there's multiple ways to win a championship. The Lakers have been doing it for years. They fought their last championship, basically. They gave away their entire young playing staff for LeBron and AT, right? So there's multiple ways to do it. That's all I'm saying. Like, I get it. I understand the whole building block by block. I get that. But there's so many ways to do it. The Knicks, really, we haven't won in 50 years. I'm just looking for us to get one. I don't care how we do it. I don't care if we have to sell out or whatever. I just want the Knicks to get one. Right, so there's so many different ways.
So LeBron James, if a 41-year-old LeBron James gets us our next championship, you take it?
Yeah. 50 years, CT. 50 years. That's a long time.
There are some Knicks fans that would sacrifice a championship not to have LeBron James on this roster, I feel.
Yeah, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, particularly when you haven't won one in 50 years. I'm just looking for one. I just need one championship to say,
What about Shah's question? Ask him if he's trading Spider straight up for RJ, or obviously RJ and other pieces.
Well, yeah, I'm doing that 100% of the time. Obviously, that's not going to be the end all, be all. You're going to have to do more to get the team into championship contention. Right. So, that's the thing. When we start talking about these trades for star players, people think that once we get that star player, then we're automatically going to win a championship. No, it does not work that way. You still have to continue to build a team, get the right pieces around Spider and whoever decides they want to come to New York, and do it that way. And see, this is all cliche. Look at this cliche, microwaving the chip. See, they put these terms out there. It's like what politicians do, microwaving the chip and all of this and that. It's not microwaving a chip. You do what you have to do to win.
Period. James, that would be selling out. It's like KD signing with the Warriors. Was that not selling out for a chip?
He won 2 titles. He won 2 titles in Golden State. He won 2 championships.
They feel empty to some people.
Not to the fans of Golden State. Not to them.
See, I have this dream scenario where the parade's beautiful and the New York Knicks, we're all there, we're celebrating, but you want it to feel good, because of we really, really earned it.
I've never been to a championship parade that did not feel good.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I'll give you an example, CT, real quick. I watch a little bit of hockey. You know what I'm saying? I'm a Ranger fan. I'm excited about, they tied the series up 2-2, whatever. In 1994, before that season, they haven't won a Stanley Cup in 54 years. So they was like, oh, it's a big curse that's happening or whatever. Most of that Ranger roster came from the Edmonton Oilers dynasty from the 80s when they had Gretzky. Most of that roster.
Yep.
Those fans in New York for the Rangers during that parade were celebrating like it was no tomorrow. So you can say they basically bought their championship too. And all that stuff goes out the window when you win. When you win, no one cares about that because, first of all, you're not guaranteed to win. So there's still some adversity in that, right? You know, you're not guaranteed to win anything. Brooklyn's a big example of that. You're not guaranteed to win. Like, you know, but you get you get closer to it.
In the eyes of a fan, not just winning, but how they win is as important as winning. In some fans' eyes, you know, it's how they won it as well.
Well, okay, CT, what about Miami when they got LeBron? They should have won the championship 4 years in a row, but they lost that first year. They went through adversity. Like every championship team is going to go through adversity. You know what I'm saying? Every championship team is going to face adversity at some point. I think that part of it is important too, not just the trades that you make. So maybe we see it differently, but
yeah. I do agree that nothing's promised. You know, you could stack up all the chips, and then the next team stacks up all their chips, and then you fall short. Look at the Karl Malone, John Stockton years. Look at Barkley and KJ and Marley and things. You know, nothing's promised. So yeah, sometimes you do just got to stack all the chips, and like Golden State did to guarantee a victory, like Miami did to guarantee. But I'm glad you mentioned the Miami thing because, you know, the playoffs have shown us a bit. Let's talk about the playoffs. You know, is the super team dead? You know, should you build with 2 stars and more depth versus, you know, the Brooklyn way where stars might be, you know, if you have not as much depth, a few guys go down, then you're screwed.
Teams win championships, not individual players. Teams win championships. So you have to fill out the rest of your roster. I think that was the biggest problem with Philly. I thought they didn't have any depth. That's to me, that's what cost them a chance at getting to the finals. Lack of depth. They had the 2 superstars, but they didn't have any depth. Right?
Yep.
Brooklyn, same kind of thing. You know, so.
Yep. Hey, salute ghetto intellect. Question: am I crazy for wanting to replace Mitch with Mark Williams? I'll let you hit that.
To me, same kind of player. I mean, I you know, I don't know if Williams is going to get as much rebounds as Mitchell Robinson, but they're the same kind of stay in the paint.
He's more sound fundamentally.
Yeah, because he had the college experience, you know, and all of that stuff. But again, I'm not a fan of having centers that stay in the paint. I need a center that can do a little bit more. So that's the reason why. And I mean, I understand GI, my guy GI, but it's just, to me, it's the same old for me.
Yeah, I don't want us to pick a center, to be honest with you. I like those prospects, but I like them in the 15 to 20 range. And I know they may not be there. I'm actually personally hoping on Jalen Duren goes 7. Because that's going to give us options.
That's another one. That's another wild card, like Jalen Duren, you know, from Memphis.
Yep. For those joining us, I'll just pop up my big board 2.0, which I'll be talking more about on the weekend and breaking that down as where we hear more scuttle and more workouts and stuff. But yeah, man, the San Antonio Spurs and the Portland Trailblazers, what they do is going to dictate. It's going to send this draft in so many directions. Because Portland's all going to trade that pick probably, and then who do they trade it to? That pick's at 7 is going to factor into which player goes. Dyson Daniels, is that buzz real? Does he go top 5? You know, AJG, I think he could slip if the medicals, you know, team's a bit concerned. And then you have the risers, Malachi Branham's rising up. You know, Sohan could go anywhere from 7 and 8 on some mocks.
Right. Eason.
Yep. Yeah, facts, right. And then let's not forget the promises. Let's say a dude that people haven't really had a good look at, Nikola Jovic or something, comes over from overseas, shuts down a couple of gyms, you know, and teams give him a promise at 15 or something. You know, there's still a lot of groundwork to be done, ladies and gents. Still 4 more weeks away, right? Yeah, you know, so yeah, look forward to chopping this up more as well. Is there anything else you wanted to get out there or address?
Knicks fans, be patient. Be patient. Again, I'm not lobbying for anybody to get shipped out the door right away. I know a lot of y'all want to see Randle gone. Even Randle, I'm not like, you know, actively pushing him out the door. But if the trade becomes available, we have to accept that some of these young guys are going to go, right? And I'm not just talking about the grinds or the IQs or the OBs or the McBrides, or the Cams. I'm talking about potentially RJ Barrett. We have to be open to that at least and not completely block that possibility from being out there. And if it happens, hopefully the Knicks are going after the right guy. It can't just be a bag of cookies. It has to be that guy that can take us to the next level. And the next level doesn't have to be championship. The next level could just mean playoffs, a perennial playoff appearances to build the team, continue building it brick by brick, block by block, until we develop a complete team that can get us over the hump, right? But again, this is not me actively shopping anyone. But I think we need to be open to the fact that a lot of these young players that we're salivating about, in a couple of years, they probably won't even be here. So that's all I have to say.
Yep, no, well said. And to recap, the 4 scenarios out of Worldwide West, maybe trying to convince Leon to trade up. Tom Thibodeau trying to convince Leon to trade out. Walt Perrin, take my guy at 11, we're good. And Brock Aller, let's look at some value. Walt Perrin wins out. New York Knicks selected 11. I like the value there. There's some guys that'll really help us, compete for next season and the future as well. Let's not overthink it. My philosophy is don't overthink it. Pick a guy who is going to produce. I like the Eason, Sohan, Johnny Davis as well. And I think it deviates. I think the guys have looked at that in the past drafts, Josh, with drafting Quentin Grimes, Deuce McBride. Tom Thibodeau has had input in those picks. They're those kind of guys that can defend and also play the other side of the ball, and they're mature as well. Quentin Grimes, a few years in college. So let's look for them to really factor in to that into who they select. I don't feel they're going to pick a freshman, to be honest with you. I have doubts over that.
I hope they don't. I hope they get someone a little bit more established that can come in and contribute right away. No, these 18, 19-year-old freshmen, need some work in the NBA, more project stuff. That's pretty much what Kevin Knox was.
Yep. No, absolutely. Yep. Well, let's get ready to
New
wrap
Yorker
up.
says, how is Simmons doing there, Foolio? I mean, Simmons is not playing. He's not playing. But when he's healthy,
Let's see. Mental approach for Simmons, in my opinion. He needs to get healthy first and foremost. Then he needs to show everyone all that hype that he came into the league with. That's another reason why interviews are telling, testing a guy's will, resolve, all that kind of thing as well. And I salute to the chat. We're going to wrap this up. We'll be back on later in the week. Really appreciate you coming on, Josh. Let's do it again.
Thanks, CT. I really appreciate you for having me. Always a big fan of your show. I really, stay tuned in and watch what you got going on. You interview some of the biggest names out there in regards to this NBA landscape. So I really appreciate what you do, man. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to what you got coming up next.
I appreciate that. Means a lot. And everyone, check Josh out on the Controversy NBK Network, ladies and gents. What are your plans for this upcoming season with that?
So, yeah, I mean, I've taken a break since the end of the season. I got some college work I'm working on, trying to finish up my degree. So I've been a little bit busy with that. But I do plan on coming on before the NBA draft, just to, again, expand on my points, expand on who I want the Knicks to draft. I'll have some special guests on there. Still working out the kinks with that. But we're going to basically break down the draft and who the Knicks should draft and what should be their mentality going into this offseason. We're going to probably talk about Mitchell Robinson and potential free agent targets and trade targets out there. So stay tuned for that, ladies and gentlemen. It's on the NBK Network. I'll be posting some clips from it on my Twitter page right there at UnclefOOlio. You can definitely hit me up on there or on Instagram at UnclefOOlio. If you ever need to contact me or question me about a point or challenge my take or what have you. And I'm always on NBK on Nothing But Knicks and a lot of the post-game and pre-game coverage as well. So you can definitely check me out there if you have any questions or concerns. So definitely appreciate that and tune in.
Yep. You already know. And we already know we're getting you back just before free agency. After we know who we've drafted, then we can go through more scenarios and you can try and convince me and the chat can get their buzz in as well. But yeah, hit everyone hit Josh up on the NBK Network, the Controversy. I look forward to seeing it this season coming up. And also, appreciate everyone out there in the chat, keeping it real as always. If you like the show, please like and subscribe as we hit the exit, and we'll be back. Salute.